really likes Aaron Rodgers, and he has always seen me as picking on Aaron. But I've got to say, I try to be fair on this show. But when people start talking about my status, my stature, it's a little much. Something comes up in my throat. So you didn't like my opening rant today on Aaron's status, my status.
Well, for the self-proclaimed America's honesty broker, there sure were a lot of lies in there. So here's the deal, America, as I talk to you. If you are an avid FS1 or Colin Cowherd fan, you might remember around 5 years ago when Colin had been in fact, you just celebrated your 5-year or 6-year anniversary on the air, so it was maybe a little 5.5 years ago, when Colin Cowherd announced my arrival to FS1 by saying, the bosses had me listen to this guy on the radio in Houston. And I said, hire him immediately. That's like my origin story here, is the bosses consulted you, a valued employee, you gave your input. Now, the folks might say, well, yeah, but that's Colin Cowherd. I mean, he is, there's Howard Stern, then there's Colin Cowherd in the history of the medium. Yeah. Got it. No problem. All right, let's just go to 6 weeks ago when my dear partner, Brandon Marshall, left the show to go pursue some more passionate interests in the mental health field, and we had an opening. Guess who got a phone call? Your old buddy, Nick Wright. The bosses. Nick, you got any thoughts on this? Damn straight I have some thoughts on this. Hire Chris Broussard. Now, luckily, that's also what they were thinking, and they did it. But this idea that valuable employees across all fields are not consulted, that we're all just, punching a time clock and like, oh no, my career and everything, it's just up to the powers that be. That's not your experience, my experience. It's not Brady's experience in Tampa. You were like, oh, Patrick Mahomes. They called him about the Edwards-Helaire draft pick after he'd started 2 years. Like, that's true. You're just banging on Aaron. You wished you were on the beach drinking Mai Tais like he was, and now you're just banging on Aaron. It really, it hurts my heart, and it angers me.
All right. Well, he's got Hollywood friends I don't. Maybe there is some jealousy. All right. Yeah. There's a lot of young quarterbacks that are talented, and I just talked about Mac Jones. You don't have to, Joy and I talked about this yesterday as we're all talking about ceilings on all these young quarterbacks. But if you flip the telescope around and just say, well, who's not going to totally bust? The one guy you'd know is like, well, Mac Jones won't because he got the best coach and the best O-line. And like, if you flip it around and we stop talking about ceilings and just who's going to win a bunch of games? Yeah, it would probably be Mac Jones. I mean, that's the argument I've made in the last month. We're too caught up in ceilings, and we're not talking about floors. So your takeaway on the one or two rookie quarterbacks who really connect?
Well, so I do think it's a fair argument to make that Mac Jones, is maybe the least likely or second least likely to be a total flameout. But I was watching college football this weekend, and it really crystallized something for me about these rookie quarterbacks. So, Colin, I know you watched it. Did you see Clemson? And I know Clemson lost their number one receiver and running back and tackle as well. But a Clemson offense that averaged 45 points a game in Trevor Lawrence starts scored 0 touchdowns. Actually, their offense gave up more points than it scored, and they lost. And I'm like, I bet Trevor Lawrence makes an instant impact with the Jags. I bet the Jags are actually better than people think. And then I watched Alabama. And I was like, Bryce Young, a man you're quite familiar with, Colin. Who's he? Oh, now he's the Heisman favorite? Oh, Alabama looks awesome? Oh, Alabama looks like how it looked when Jalen was the quarterback, and then when Tua was the quarterback, and then when Mac Jones was the quarterback, and now Bryce Young's the quarterback. If I'm a Pats fan, in an odd way, obviously the saddest people about this game are Miami Hurricane fans. Sorry, Joy. But the second saddest might be Pats fans. When it's like, wait, is every guy that plays in this offense these days going to look like a star? Because they're not all going to be stars. So in an odd way, I think Bryce Young, your pal, Colin, should be making Pats fans a little nervous about how good Mac Jones actually is, because that team didn't seem to miss a beat.
You brought up an interesting point the other day, and I referenced you, giving you credit, as a man of my status often does.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. You said Matt Stafford won 5 games in Detroit. He leaves. Jared Goff comes in. Vegas, has an over-under at 5 wins.
5 games.
Yeah. The Rams, Goff won 10 leaves. Stafford goes to the Rams, and the over-under's 10.5. And that Vegas does not see him as transformative, a messiah, a savior. Yeah. They see Matt Stafford as, talented, maybe a little better than Jared Goff. Yeah. So people are, and I would admit, the Rams have a lot of great players, and I think they're very well run. But what do you make of the Stafford-McVay connection and the hype surrounding it?
Yeah, listen, you know me, Colin. I'm just a humble Midwesterner who's had a few lucky breaks in my career. And you know what I see? I see some coastal bias. I see some coastal elite media. Peter King says, your friend Peter King said he's going to win MVP, they're going to win the Super Bowl, and he might throw for 6,000 yards. I'm like, well, that's fancy, because he threw for 5,000 once, and they're like, oh, he has an extra game. Oh, so in the extra game, he's going to throw for 1,000 yards, and he's going to have Calvin Johnson back like he did when he threw for 5,000. The idea that Matt Stafford, who got drafted by the Lions right after W. Bush left office, and that team was never good. The idea that he wears none of it. That Doug Farrar just tweeted out, Matt Stafford's record against teams with a winning record, 8-68, the worst by far of any quarterback in the last 20 years. That none of it's his fault. Oh, what'd you expect him to do in Detroit? Well, I don't know. He had Calvin Johnson and Marvin Jones and Golden Tate and Kenny Golladay. I don't know. How about this? Here's what I expect him to do. Win a playoff game. Win one playoff game like, I don't know, Mark Sanchez won 4 of them. I think he'll be good. I think the Rams will be good because I think Goff was objectively bad and he's better than that. But this idea that Matt Stafford had no agency over the fact that the Lions stunk for a decade and that he wears none of it, I think it's a little, it's anti-Rust Belt bias. They're like, oh, Detroit, it's all Detroit's fault. But now he's in the big city, L.A. He's going to be great. I just don't know if I buy it.
That's interesting. That's an interesting take. So I don't even need to mostly ask this. Your Super Bowl pick, I know one of them. I do think Tampa feels significantly better than the second best team in the NFC. I think Kansas City feels better. I'm just not sure how much better than Buffalo, but I think they're better. That's kind of, I think there's a lot of arguments in the AFC, a little injury here or there to, an offensive lineman for Kansas City, and I don't know. So your Super Bowl pick. What's your Super Bowl pick?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense that Kansas City, Buffalo, who's never beaten Kansas City since Mahomes been there, and they actually played each other in the AFC Championship game, and after spotting Buffalo a double-digit lead, the Chiefs reeled off a 38-6 run like an AAU basketball team. Yeah, it's real close. Josh Allen, he's had one great year of football in his life since junior high, but yeah, he should be the MVP. I saw your guys' little segment before that. Yeah, Josh Allen, MVP, why not? Why not? He's been good, really good once in a decade. But yeah, he'll catch Mahomes and Reed and Tyreek and Kelsey, sure. Meanwhile, the Bucs, the gap is massive. Did we not watch the same playoffs where Heineke is within a score in the first round and they're down 10 to Drew Brees, who can't throw the ball more than 8 yards, and they are one very, very questionable pass interference flag on a Brady incompletion away from Rodgers getting the ball back down 5. So no, we're going to get this year the Super Bowl we should have gotten last year. Chiefs, Packers. And we're going to get the result we should have gotten last year. Chiefs over Packers. And I don't have your beloved Bucs making the conference championship game. I think San Francisco is going to be outstanding. And talk about a Final Four from hell if this happens for Colin Cowherd. You've got on one side, you got Baker. You got my obnoxiousness with Kansas City. You have Aaron Rodgers, who, God forbid, he might actually ask them to decide when the plane leaves. So ask him about that if he makes another Super Bowl. And Tom Brady nowhere to be seen. That's my Final Four with the Chiefs winning it.
Well, it's not highly unlikely. I don't think it's as likely as you make it out to be, but it's not highly unlikely. Well, this was a good meeting for us, and hope things are going well for you.
This is fun.
By the way,
missed you guys.
Since he got Broussard, look at his hairstyle. It's all jazzy, and it's all new age, and you look very progressive, very hip.
Yeah, that's right.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.